Joining me now is one of our national security experts, David Pine, president of the EMP Task Force, emptaskforce.us, and he's also at dpine.substack.com. He is now the president of this organization, of which was led by our mutual friend for so many years, Dr. Peter Vincent Pry. As many of you know, we produced his TV show from this very news desk and his weekly radio broadcast. He passed away about 3 or 4 years ago now. Man, do I wish I could have conversations with him now. But he did thankfully leave us a lot of articles, a lot of research books. I have a big stack of them just a few feet away from me in my bookcase here. But he's also in some of our documentaries. David, welcome back to the broadcast. Thank you for being with us.
Hey, Brad. Great to be with you.
Great to have you with us. I want to go to the topic we've had before, and we're going to discuss it tonight because Vladimir Putin has just successfully tested again Poseidon. I think they've tested it before. So, I mean, we've been talking about it a long time. It's been launched. So I don't know about this whole successful test. I think it's been tested more than once because we've been talking about it since at least 2018. And it's in our documentary from 2019, which I want to play a clip of it, and Putin tonight. But what do you make of the successful test? They've tested it before now.
Yeah, they tested it back in 2022. I think they had more than one test. They deployed 2 Poseidon carrier submarines. They indicated it was operational back in 2022. Maybe that was posturing. But what seems different in this instance is President Putin is declaring that not only was it launched from a carrier submarine successfully, but for the first time, it used its nuclear powered system, that enables it to travel at virtually unlimited distances until it runs out of nuclear fuel. So that seems to be the what's new about this test. And if so, this is a very great and potentially existential threat to the U.S. because, as we know, the Russians have boasted they could use it to kill off tens of millions of Americans, particularly along America's Atlantic seaboard, going in perhaps 50 miles or so with a 1,600-foot tsunami.
Did you just say 1,600 feet?
1,600 feet is what's being reported for a 100 megaton warhead Poseidon missile or torpedo.
And it could do 200, right? As a dial on it, right?
I haven't confirmed that. A lot of media sources are claiming it's only 2 megatons, but it's most likely 100 megatons. But yes, it was reported, I think, by Dr. Peter Pry that it could be up to 200 megatons. So it's very possible.
Said it had a dial on it.
It has exactly what you say, some kind of dial warhead.
Some kind of dial, you can dial it up. All right, let's go to Putin before we go to the clip of Dr. Pry at this very news desk. We filmed that, I think, I have to check when we filmed it. I don't know if we filmed it in 2018 or if we filmed it in I guess we filmed it probably in 2019. And then we released it December 2019. But here is, I don't know, I'll have to double check on that. But we know the documentary came out December 2019, warning about this. And I'm going to play the clip by Putin, and then we'll talk more about why Putin is doing this now. Could it be because of something President Trump said, which when he said it, I cringed the other day because like you that follow this broadcast, I was thinking about the Poseidon. I'm like, do you really want to say these kind of things when we have the knowledge of the Poseidon, not to mention other things that Russia has? So did President Trump say something, and now it's getting into a tit-for-tat situation, which is not what we should be doing? Watch this from Putin just in the last few hours.
Just yesterday.
Well, they plug in the audio. There's going to be a translator, obviously.
Just yesterday, there was another test of a future weapons system. And that's an unmanned submarine, Poseidon unmanned submarine, with a nuclear power plant. So for the first time we managed not only to launch it from a carrier submarine, but to start its nuclear power plant, which powered this vessel, underwater vessel, for a certain period of time. This is a huge breakthrough as well, because with all the advantages I mentioned about Burevestnik, this one has a very small power plant, probably 100 times smaller than a nuclear submarine's nuclear reactor. But the power capacity of Poseidon greatly exceeds the power of our longest range intercontinental Sarmat missile, and soon it will be fielded. And Poseidon greatly exceeds Sarmat in capacity and power, and in depth and speeds of underwater propulsion. There are no rivals to it, and there are no ways of intercepting it.
No rivals, no way of intercepting it. And, you know, I think what maybe caused this, just guessing, may have been the fact that Donald Trump came out last week and said, Putin, we have one of our subs off your coast. We don't have to go 8,000 miles, we're off your coast. And I thought when he said that, why do we have to start that? And now we have this. Did you cringe at all when you heard President Trump say that?
Yeah, this is a boast that Trump started making when he had this tiff on X with former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev. And, it started over tariffs and all his various escalation threats in terms of longer range missiles up to including Tomahawks, which could range 1,550 miles all over European Russian, potentially hit Moscow itself. And Medvedev reminded Trump that Russia possesses the dead hand or perimeter system, which could be used to unleash all of Russia's deployed strategic nuclear warheads, even if the U.S. was successful in taking out Russia's nuclear command authorities, which would be Russian President Putin, the Chief of the General Staff, of course, and the Minister of Defense. But this is, these kind of threats really are very unproductive on the part of President Trump, and they have produced exactly what you said, this tit for tat, where the Russians are not just threatening, but they're actually demonstrating their capabilities. Now, we haven't confirmed, there's been no public release of confirmation of this test, but given that it's a torpedo that's can go as deep as 1 kilometer underwater. I mean, it would be very difficult to confirm that test unless we had assets near the test area. So I don't doubt that Russia possesses this capability. I don't doubt that this is an operational Poseidon missile or torpedo. And the U.S., the Trump administration needs to take account of these Russian nuclear capabilities while they continue to escalate unnecessarily this, Biden's war in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. I have to sometimes wonder again if President Trump, and we've caught him in a bubble a couple of times where the press had to tell him about certain things. I have to wonder if he's in a bubble, and maybe in prior to today's news, that he didn't even know about the Poseidon. Think that's possible?
I think it's unlikely that he has not been informed of the Poseidon's capabilities, given that he's been, present on and off since the time that it was announced in 2018 when President Putin announced 6 different Russian nuclear superweapons, of which 4 are not covered by New START treaty limitations. These are very capable systems. It's certainly possible, but you don't want to believe the president is more in the dark than we are. Just being able to read unclassified open source intelligence about these systems.
Well, let's assume he has been briefed on it then. Has he been briefed on it, but then he's also been told how we're able to thwart it? In other words, he either knows we are not up to par with them, and he just says that we are to bluff, or he really thinks that we have defenses against things like Poseidon, and we're bigger and badder than we are. You think he knows it and is just pounding his chest because he has to as commander-in-chief? Or do you think he really believes this, meaning he's been told a pack of lies by the military-industrial complex?
Well, there's absolutely no defense against this torpedo, so there's no way he's been told that. But certainly, I think that I do think he believes that the U.S. nuclear arsenal is the strongest, and that's really disturbing because we have so much overwhelming evidence with Russia and China having all of these new strategic nuclear launch systems. I think I counted 15 or more just over the last 30 years, during which time the U.S. has deployed one, the Trident II, which we started deploying in 1992. We're putting all our effort to try to develop and deploy just one single ICBM, the Sentinel ICBM. We don't have any new SLBMs currently in the works, at least none that are openly being developed, or other strategic launch system, nuclear missile launch systems, delivery systems. And so, just anyone who's has an interest in nuclear weapon systems can determine that the U.S. is much weaker than we've been ever before relative to our enemies, and that this missile gap or nuclear warhead gap continues to increase. During the JFK administration, we had this imaginary missile gap in which we were told the Soviets, were achieving nuclear superiority with more ICBMs than we did, and we built the Minuteman I, deployed that in starting I think in 1961 or 62, that Eisenhower had ordered. But this is a very real gap, and it's not just a small gap; it's a huge gap that really should cause the U.S. to try to make peace with Russia, as Dr. Peter Pry famously urged us to do.
Mm-hmm. Take a look at this little video simulation. For go to the clip of Dr. Pry from this very news desk. Watch this. Wow, did you notice that? I'm going to go back a little bit here. It looks like that one torpedo was able to take out 6 of our ships.
Yeah, that's the normal complement of a carrier strike group. So that's what the Russians have stated, that in terms of military targets, carrier strike groups would be the primary target. Dr. Peter Pry believed that was not the case, that in fact this weapon was developed to trail and destroy our Ohio-class nuclear ballistic missile submarines from a distance of up to 50 kilometers. So I share that belief. I think this is a nuclear first strike weapon that could be used with devastating results.
And for the lay people, so they understand, that is part of our nuclear triad: submarines, aircraft, and what's the third one? Rockets, missiles,
ICBMs, land-based ICBMs.
So if you take out the subs, they don't get their nuclear weapons off. So you don't have to get that close because you use such a massive weapon that it destroys them, or EMP could also do a lot of damage. But I'm guessing they'd just be destroyed, and then they can't receive signals from part of the nuclear triad, the planes, for their launch commands, correct?
Yeah, it would be destroyed or disabled, most likely not through EMP, but through just kinetic kill. given the size of the warhead and its ability to produce blast waves and pressure waves through the ocean.
All right, let's go to the clip of Dr. Price sitting at this desk. I'm standing next to him, where he was warning about this. And this came out again this documentary came out in December of 2019. It's Siege. It's like 9.5 hours long, isn't it, Logan? The documentary is like 9.5 hours long, and it's I've taken it and written it into a book, and that book will be out in the next week or so, maybe 2 weeks. The new book. So my new book on Hamas is out Friday. My book on Siege, and then my book on sabotage. I'm turning these all into books, and they're being edited right now. And Siege is up next. And you will not have to buy it, folks. If you're a member of the Vault at worldviewtube.com/vault, it will automatically be there in your library as part of your PDFs, your ebooks, your PDFs. You won't have to buy it. Okay? But here's that clip from 2019.
Poseidon, Russia's new Doomsday machine. This in itself is amazing. Can you tell us about that one real quick?
Sure. This is a little bit, it is related to EMP, but it's, I thought it was such a remarkable and disturbing new development that I had to write a special report about it. And this is basically a revolutionary new weapon that the Russians are developing, and they're about to deploy it. What they've done is they've built the most powerful nuclear weapon in history. It has a yield of 100 megatons. And this is 10,000 times more powerful than the Hiroshima bomb. And they've put it in a robotized submarine. That is a submarine that has no crew. It's a robot submarine that's designed to guide itself underwater. And it's got artificial intelligence so that it could, we're not sure, they advertise it as being to create radioactive tsunamis, because a 100 megaton weapon would create potentially enormous tsunamis, 100 yards high, that are radioactive to flood the eastern seaboard. I'm not sure that that's the real reason. That might be disinformation. I think that there are two more realistic purposes to this machine. One is to track our ballistic missile submarines, because we don't have that many of them that are left on day-to-day deployment. We only have about 4 to 6 of our ballistic missile submarines out at sea. And the reason the Soviet Union never launched a nuclear war against us during the Cold War is they couldn't figure out how to get those ballistic missile submarines. They could destroy our land-based missiles, they could destroy our bombers, but the submarines were the one thing they couldn't get. However, if they were able to track our submarines with this Poseidon robot armed with a 100 megaton warhead, I mean, that will have a lethal radius potentially of hundreds of kilometers against our submarines. It could take the last of our subs out. The other thing is, it could be also, in addition to using it for a submarine, the real purpose of the 100 megaton bomb, could be for a high altitude EMP attack as a way of getting the submarines, because that will generate what's called the E3 EMP, and it would penetrate the oceans, and it could couple into the electronics of submarines and destroy them that way. And so they could have this twofold way, going after them directly with blast from this Poseidon robot sub, but also using the 100 megaton weapon to blast the oceans to put an EMP on the oceans to get the submarines. The bottom line of this thing, though, that what makes me most concerned about it, it is the first time that a nuclear superweapon and artificial intelligence have been married together. And it's like the science fiction, like Terminator, these movies that have been warning us, the Forbin Project that goes back to the 70s, that have been warning for years about artificial intelligence being combined with superweapons as posing a threat to humanity. Coming real, it's actually here. That kind of science fiction scenario is actually here in Poseidon, and this is the first one.
Wow, what do you make of that, David?
Yeah, no, he's absolutely right. I mean, it is very scary that, we have an AI-powered nuclear superweapon. What if the AI was, went haywire and these things were on patrol and somehow, it got hijacked by some kind of Russian hardliner or something, or, it was used accidentally and took out multiple submarines, nuclear missile submarines on the U.S. side and carrier strike groups, because it does have that potential. If they were kind of focused in a similar area that not too far from each other, it could take out not just an entire carrier strike group, but much more, especially where, Dr. Pry assessed that, it would have a super EMP effect, potentially hundreds of kilometers or so. This really needs to drive Trump's, reset of U.S. Russian relations. And again, we've discussed how we really had a deal. Trump and Putin had a deal on the table, ready to sign at the Anchorage summit. And he kind of backed out and said, I need to talk to Zelensky and EU leaders again, because when I talked to him a few days ago, they didn't seem to like it. I mean, who cares what they like, what they want? We need to do what's best for for U.S. national security interests, and that is to take a nuclear war with Russia off the table with a comprehensive peace agreement along the lines that Trump envisioned to end the war in Ukraine.
Let's switch over to Venezuela. We're getting reports now that more than 3 million Venezuelans have joined militias since the U.S. military buildup, bringing the total number up to 8 million people, not including regular members of the military. You believe that?
I find it hard to believe that they could have that number of troops, even reserve and militia troops, out of a population of 30 million. I would believe 3 million, maybe even 4.4 million, that, like they said, of militia troops. But 8 million, I think we're just getting into just propaganda. I don't think that's possible.
Okay, so let's go with 3 million, right? That's still a big force. What do you think is going on there? We're threatening, I guess, to kill him, Maduro. Apparently, our government was trying to convince his pilot to take his plane, fly to the U.S. and let us arrest him. We're now getting reports that Russia is moving heavy equipment. I think we have a picture of something here. That Russia is moving heavy equipment into Venezuela. I'm assuming you've heard that report today as well, correct?
I hadn't heard the report today, but I've heard other reports of a large Russian plane transport landing in Venezuela that have potentially hypersonic or supersonic anti-ship missiles. We know that they have Su-30s that can carry long-range Russian supersonic anti-ship missiles that travel at a speed of Mach 3. So those, and there's been reports from a friend of mine, Brandon Weikart, saying that Venezuela may have a lot more Russian supersonic anti-ship missiles than that, not just 20, but perhaps in the thousands, a few thousand, up to 5,000. So even if they have dozens of those, that could potentially result in hitting and disabling, the USS Gerald Ford, and taking out one of our carriers. Likely wouldn't sink it, but they could potentially disable it, cause it to catch fire, and then it would have to limp away. And that would be a huge prestige loss for the U.S. That I'm not sure Trump would be justified in risking.
Heavy Russian cargo plane lands in Caracas amid U.S. Venezuelan tensions. That would be northern Venezuela, Caracas. Now we're hearing that maybe the Russian, a group known as the Wagner Group, has landed in Venezuela. Here we have what appears to be Putin having sent the Wagner mercenaries to Caracas to help Maduro. Again, what do you think is brewing there, if these reports are true?
Well, I think President Trump ultimately, he's actually, if you read reports way back to 2017, his very first year as president, he talked about how the Venezuelans, regime of Nicolas Maduro was numbered. Their days were numbered. And that's something that Marco Rubio has trumpeted as one of his top foreign policy objectives since before he became Secretary of State. So I think Rubio is he's kind of the power behind the throne in terms of foreign policy. I think he has carte blanche authority on foreign policy, and Trump listens to him and pretty much does whatever he says. We saw that with the torpedoing of the Budapest summit, which, according to Bloomberg, was Rubio's baby in terms of him being the one to have convinced Trump that it wasn't worth meeting with President Putin, even though he did have this tentative peace deal on the table in which Russia had offered to in exchange for the Donbass region, they give up 2/3 of their territorial demands and agreed to a general ceasefire. That was a very favorable deal for the U.S. and Zelensky. I think it's not too late to salvage that. But the very fact that Trump has moved forward, with all these militant threats against Russia, when he has a peace deal in reach, and is basically doing Zelensky's bidding and Rubio's bidding and refusing it, is very troubling from a U.S. national security perspective.
So what do you think could happen with Venezuela? Do you see us getting involved, boots on the ground, making airstrikes, and then boots on the ground? What do you see?
Well, I think Lindsey Graham had it right, and that the next step is airstrikes against Venezuelan targets. Could be air defense systems, that we would see certainly anti-ship missiles, taking out their Su-30s that have these anti-ship missiles that they can carry. Anything that would pose a threat to U.S. naval and amphibious forces going in, as well as U.S. aircraft. So if we see that, then we know that some kind of invasion, amphibious invasion or air assault invasion is likely in the works. The goal, of course, would be regime change. It would be to overthrow Maduro, and likely to do so with the smallest number of troops possible, kind of using the Iraq War II as a model, which we used as few as 100,000 troops to get rid of Saddam when he had 400,000 Iraqi troops to defend the country that essentially he ordered not to resist and melt away.
Could we find ourselves fighting Venezuela, China, Hezbollah, Russia, all on Venezuelan soil?
Well, I think, yeah. I mean, we've already, Trump boasted about bombing Wagner mercenaries in Syria. He bombed about, said he killed or injured, I think, hundreds of Russian Wagner mercenaries. I'm not sure if that boast was true, but certainly some, Russian mercenaries were killed in Syria in the U.S. bombing strikes during his first term. So I think Russia and China do have boots on the ground in Venezuela. I don't think they have large number of troops. But Russia and China have every reason to try to defend the Maduro regime from U.S. invasion and to try to maximize their casualties. So we're doing the same thing to Russia. I mean, Russia, of course, has the most motivation to try to sink some U.S. aircraft carrier, kill thousands of Marines, shoot down a lot of our planes. And those are all very real possibilities. And I think that, we shouldn't underestimate the potential for kind of a Vietnam-style war. I think.
Well, that was my next question. That's interesting you said that, because that was my next question. Are we going to get bogged down there in something like Vietnam?
Well, the potential is certainly there. We should, if we were to withdraw our troops from the Middle East and Europe, and reduce our footprint in the Western Pacific as well, I wouldn't be so opposed to it. But the problem is, just like the U.S. Navy is scattered all across the world. China has all their Navy concentrated against Taiwan. Venezuela has a lot of, they have a lot of troops. They don't have a lot of firepower. They have, I think, 120 modern Russian tanks, maybe double that in terms of infantry fighting vehicles. Obviously, their Air Force, I think, is maybe 80 modern fighters at most, and some attack helicopters. So, I mean, in terms of capabilities, I think if we brought enough troops to bear, we could certainly defeat them. The problem is, they probably, their army would withdraw to the countryside, and we could be fighting, an insurgency war that could last a decade. But even worse, it could be a situation like Libya, where we have kind of the western half is pro-Western, and the eastern half is pro-Russian, and that could just go on for years.
All right. Nothing short to talk about tonight, is there? dpine.substack.com, dpine.substack.com. You'll find all his latest articles, including one on the Poseidon as well. As always, David, thanks for making time for us.
Thanks, Brad. Always a pleasure.
You too, my friend. David Pine checking in, dpine.substack.com. We'll be right back after this very short break. Go to worldviewtalk.com. Get your satellite phone like I have, because you know what? China is in on our power grid. That is a matter of proven fact. If you want to have communications with your loved ones, your family, your children, maybe your spouse travels, maybe you have a child away at college, you want communication should the grid go down. That's why you need a satellite phone, worldviewtalk.com. But look what else they have. They also have solar generators. I have one of their solar generators. I have the Delta Echo 400, a solar generator. So I can, of course, charge my satellite phone. I can run my coffee pot. I can run my whole house if I want to. All the details are there at worldviewtalk.com, or use that number, 1-866-738-3224. They have very friendly operators that will explain to you their products, but you can explain to them what it is you're desiring to acquire. How much electricity are you wanting to generate with this solar generator? Well, they'll tell you what size you need. Worldviewtalk.com or 1-866-738-3224.